Welcome back. It's 11:16 now, and we are remembering when the Sabres launched Lindy, one of the worst nightclub disasters in history, and Alexander the Great. Those stories and more made news this very week and decades past. Here's Dave McKinley with this week's News to You.
Would you believe it was 10 years ago this week when you first heard?
It's the end of an era. After 15 years as the Sabres coach, Lindy Ruff has been fired.
Lindy would land on his skates, though, hired a few months later to coach the Dallas Stars, and he's still coaching in the NHL and yelling at the refs these days with the New Jersey Devils. But that brings us to this week's News to You pop quiz, which is: who replaced Lindy Ruff as head coach in Buffalo after the Sabres parted ways with their longest-serving and winningest coach of all time this week in 2013? 20 years ago this week, in the days of UN weapons inspectors, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, and Buffalo News Kids Days, a pyrotechnics display during a performance by Great White caught fire to the ceiling of the Station nightclub in Rhode Island. In the subsequent stampede to escape, many did not. 100 died, 230 others injured, in what still ranks as among the worst concert disasters in history. Back in Buffalo, we were getting our first look at what the Outer Harbor was supposed to look like. We got the small boat harbor, but the plan for office parks and condominiums have yet to materialize. Kensington High School grad Jessica White was adding to her impressive modeling portfolio by making the pages of that year's Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. And Buffalo's Jerry Darlak and The Touch were nominated for a Grammy for Best Polka Album, back when the Grammys had that category. They didn't win, but a 23-year-old Norah Jones sure did, garnering 6, including Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best New Artist, at a show memorable for a reuniting performance by Simon and Garfunkel and a guitar tribute to the late Joe Strummer of The Clash by Bruce Springsteen, Stevie Van Zandt, Dave Grohl, and Elvis Costello. It doesn't get much better than it did this week in 2003. 30 years ago this week, when what you know now to be the main gaming floor at the Seneca Niagara Casino was still the main hall of the Niagara Falls Convention and Civic Center, and played host to school banquets, rodeos, and Niagara University basketball. You could still see the elephants at the Shrine Circus, and you could for several years more until 2017, when Governor Cuomo signed a bill banning elephants and circuses in New York. Back in those days, when there was a trial, we took endless pictures of defendants entering and leaving court, but as they're not really big on the First Amendment anymore at the Erie County Courthouse, you won't see it these days. Back then, Chelsea Clinton was still a kid, and her dad seemed to be jogging all the time, and we always seemed to be showing that on the news. And Alexander Mogilny broke the Sabres' single-season record for goals with his 57th. He went on to score 76, establishing a new record which still stands 30 years after he set it, back in the days when it was all News to You.
So here's the answer to this week's News to You pop quiz. We asked who replaced Lindy Ruff as coach of the Sabres after Ruff was fired 10 years ago this week. The answer: Ron Ralston, who the Sabres brought up from Rochester. But Ralston, who ended up being one of the worst winning percentages among the Sabres coaches, didn't even last a year and has not gotten a head coaching job in the NHL since.